With Mieke today, we'll more be addressing the question of co-making and authorship in multiple forms and definitions, if I understood also her main point. Some of you might have already taken advantage to visit the campus. We have multiple exhibitions going on, so if you haven't now, I hope you will take advantage after the lecture. The theme of the program Reviewing Authorship is the result of a kind of brainstorming with the different coordinators of the master programs here on campus about some of the questions that are relevant to the way in which they are addressing teaching in an art school in our current circumstances and conditions. So I won't say further much more about that. Maybe I will just read Mieke's official bio note, which I think is always useful to have at hand. She's a cultural theorist, critic, and video artist, and she works on feminism, migratory culture, psychoanalysis, and the critique of capitalism. Her books include a trilogy on political art, Endless and Abstraction, and Thinking in Film, both from 2013, Of What One Cannot Speak from 2010, and on sculpture, well actually these are all medium specific, and on Mieke Bal Reader, which came out in 2006, there's also a film about her. In 2016, appeared in Media Res inside Nalini Malini's Shadow Play. And she has become world famous for the book Narratology, which if you haven't yet had in your hands, it's highly recommended for all art students to spend a lot of time with that book. So I will, without further additions, Mieke, thank you again for having accepted our invitation. Mieke has also been extensively visiting today the show on campus, engaging with the students, so we're very appreciative of your generosity, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicola. I have warned you, it's sort of a long lecture, and there is a lot in it, so feel free to raise your hand and say, explain that, and you know, if I'm too dense. It sometimes happens when I have too much on my mind, so don't feel shy to do that. I'm going to, and I thank you very much for the invitation, and I loved seeing the works in the show, and I congratulate the leaving, the parting MAs for their work. Okay, now we all know that the author is supposed to be dead, at least if we take the title and the final sentence of Baumgart's 1967 essay To Heart. It's not good?
It's pretty good, but we're just gonna...
Okay, that's better? Okay. I do my best, but it won't be perfect. That things are more complicated than that cannot be surprising after you have heard Thierry de Duve unpack the many ways Marcel Duchamp not only deconstructed but mocked the artist as author, undermining the prestige of authorship that caused Barthes and Foucault to worry about it in the first place, only to then turn the artist into an artwork. This is Duchamp for you, and you know more about it because unfortunately I had to miss that lecture, and I know how brilliant he is, and I cannot imitate his act. So it's a bit of a daunting task. And then here we are, all authors, artists, or at the very least makers of texts and objects, projects, designs, that we propose to the public, signed by our names. We wouldn't be united around the concept of authorship if we adhere to the facile Vulgate that the proclamation of the death of the author is really the end of the issue of authorship. The question of authorship remains like a detective novel where the dead-seeming body vanishes only to resurface much later under a different identity, or like a mummy coming to life again. The first issue that survival necessary is responsibility. This is my first and last word about this issue. Political, social, and ethical. Now, both Barthes and Foucault's essays are much more intricate than the facile dismissal suggests and have not been explored enough due to the emotional response that blocked readers to the complexity. I've read so many articles about it, just saying, no, no, no. At the end of his first paragraph, Barthes writes poetically, writing is that neutral, composite, oblique space where our subject slips away, the negative where all identity is lost, with the very identity of the body writing. Slipping away, identity lost, body vanishing. Before dying, in the final sentence of Barthes' essay, the author in Foucault's text is subjected to writing in similar, albeit a bit drier, somewhat drier words. Foucault defines writing as creating a space into which the writing subject constantly disappears. So as artists, your task is to constantly disappear. Now here too, the statement that matters most concerns writing in relation to reading, or making in relation to watching, seeing. Foucault describes the author, or rather what he calls the author function, thus: the ideological figure by which one marks the manner in which we fear, this is the word, the proliferation of meaning. That word fear is what matters. It indicates that it is the reader who needs the author function to assuage that fear for his own responsibility for meaning. Because if there is no author who tells you what to think, you have to do it. Now, Ernst van Alphen has discussed many times this issue as taalangst, fear of language, fear of the medium itself. And I think that's a really good point. Foucault analyzes the author into different personae, or functions, each with some sticky significance. He discusses the author as needed in the penal system, if the work is transgressive. And we know that visual art has not escaped this at all. Not even in our own time, not even in the Western world. Censorship is alive. Close to that is the issue of ownership, also a legal one, and more problematic in the times of digital reproducibility. Just alluding to Benjamin. In this respect, artists are just as strongly bound to or embedded in the capitalist market economy as all other activities and productions, and let's not fool ourselves. We cannot escape it. Although this system creates more problems than it solves, is socially destructive and causes crisis upon crisis, I really don't think that we should hold artists personally not responsible, yes, but blame them personally for, even if they have the luck, the PR talents, or sometimes even artistic quality to become successful, including financially, they are as embedded in that system as we are. But after these quick beginnings, Foucault becomes more philosophical and examines the conceptual consequences of the belief in the author. The concept, rather than the person, he writes, becomes an indicator of the status of discourse, thus influencing and stimulating the general cultural belief, intellectual laziness, or gullibility that makes people so porous to manipulation. Can you really hear me well now? Okay, thank you. Now, the shift from anonymous authorship to the conception we consider romantic of the man, always man, of genius, allows a pagan attitude of adoration for the author rather than his work, in a dangerous competition with God, the other creator. The line between literary or artistic genius and the scientific one becomes thin. All this we know only too well, thanks to this essay of Foucault that is so well known. There remain, however, two aspects of Foucault's analysis that we have not been able to shed in those 50 years of fierce debate. Firstly, the author or artist is a projection by the reader who imagines what kind of person can have such an impact. This is the beginning of the most interesting meaning of the concept, namely that an author is capable of dispersing his or herself, of becoming like a schizophrenic, multiple, becoming different personae. These two, the self-dispersal and the indispensable function of the projecting reader, who projects this function, are key to the role reversal that Barthes was after, more or less, at the same time and place as Foucault, who seems, without saying so, to respond to Barthes in his lecture from 2 years later, where he uses similar words, but there was also the whole movement in Germany after Gadamer. Foucault suggests that a writer must sacrifice him or herself. This self-sacrifice, a big deal for the narcissistic author, whose narcissism constitutes the basis of his living, is as ambivalent as the projection of the reader, by the reader, that turns the self-centered, perhaps even autistic author into a dispersed, proliferated source of multiple meanings. This self-sacrifice serves to maintain that fine line between self-centeredness and exhibitionism as the condition of authorship as a mode of economic sustenance, and the self-effacing act that is the proper sacrifice. And that strangely comes together, and I'll come back to that. That fine line is what Edvard Munch so tellingly captured in this painting, Golgotha. The goal of the sacrifice, in a metaphysical as well as capitalist mode of thinking, is to get something out of it. That's the sort of thinking, you do something, you want to get something out of it. Either the narrative redeems the death with immortality, as in the classical epic, and here you see the death of Achilles, and isn't he immortal? Foucault suggests that. Or, Foucault says, it can serve to forestall death, as in the frame narrative Arabian Nights, and I really don't think he got this right here. And I would recommend this book by Ranjana Khanna to set the record straight. He completely misconstrued Scheherazade, who is the eminently emblematic example of a storytelling author. She does not sacrifice herself, but on the contrary, she keeps herself alive by the very act of authorship. So she's the counter-sacrifice. But that issue and the persistent Orientalism that inheres in this wrong interpretation will have to remain for another lecture. I'll be back. If then, Barthes, in his turn, concludes his essay after warning us that writing can only exist by virtue of being read, with the watershed sentence at the end of his essay, the birth of the reader must be at the cost of the death of the author, I would like to stop at that sentence in order to shed its apparent binary opposition between reader and author, which is what it has been made to mean. Not only does that sentence come, I would say, a little late at the end of the essay, but although it is grammatically simple, it is also quite complex in meaning. The discourse of sacrifice, on which Foucault picked up, rings sincere in this sentence precisely because it's so emphatic. At the cost of, it's a normal phrase, but still, including the sense that the sacrifice is worth it. For Barthes wrote a few lines above, a text's unity lies not in its origin, but in its destination, which is not about death or life. However, the reader is without history in relation to the text, whereas the author is simply that someone who holds together in a single field all the traces by which the written text is constituted. So it's just a sort of a sponge that holds it together. Holding together comes very close to Foucault's statement about our fear of proliferating meaning. His implied argument that authority is what the ideology of the author seeks to establish. And authority is not what we need. The gain of this readerly view, which none of the furious respondents I have had the dubious pleasure to read, most of them simply conservative, holding on to a positivistic obsession with origin and individual talent and authority, none of those have bothered to mention is the materiality of the text, that thing we can see, that connecting element where origin meets destiny, and temporally where past meets present and enables a move toward the future, the trace. Materiality and the trace. Let's keep these two concepts in mind in the rest of what we are going to look at. Not only as important factors of authorship, but also as the common element between textual author and visual artist. Now, as my colleague Kathy Suslov, who is also writing an essay on authorship right now, so I consulted her about it, suggested in an email, the role of the artist has only increased after the author was deceased. She mentions the increased significance of the artist in the world, while the latter has decreased, and how the figure of the artist has been transformed due to biennials, migration, the world market for art, with the rise of the gallery culture for wealthy collectors and their artists, celebrity culture, and the proliferation of museums all over the world. This was all Kathy's email. So, celebrity culture, here you have it. After the resurrection of the author, we may now want to reflect on the transformations that are not simply due to a changed circumstance of the global culture, global art culture, but to changed conceptions of subjectivity and human sociality, transformations of which Barthes and Foucault's wake-up calls were the symptoms. I think that's what they were really after. Clearly, any unified notion of authorship, whether anchored in these two texts or not, negative or back to positive, is too heavy a burden. Look at what a burden that is. So I now want to shift to an acceptance, endorsement, even heavy support of the notion of authorship, on the condition that we unravel it and leave the strands alone. Now, this second part of my lecture, I will focus on the rejection of authorship as bound to the individualistic, sanctified idealization of artistic output. A rejection along the lines of Barthes and Foucault, and then, in the last part, I want to propose a different consideration. We must decline the invitation to self-aggrandizement, the narcissistic investment that precludes the necessary engagement with which the world, engagement with the world that is so necessary for every human being, including or especially artists, as well as the authority position that still remains most clearly visible in interviews, but worse, in so-called critical texts that are nothing other than the dictates of the artist, whom the critic asks, "What did you mean?" And then they explain it, and then you have the critical text. I'm sorry, with all due respect for what authors mean, I don't think that's a critical text. This question may be relevant in personal situations and out of curiosity, but the critic must resist that question, asked out of fear, be it of the proliferation of meaning or of getting it wrong, according to the author authority. The author, like the critic, is just another reader, and there is no reason to fear to get it wrong, for right and wrong don't apply. Let's avoid falling back, even just slightly, into that penal system. But if there is any central reason to hold on to a concept of authorship, it is the accountability that comes with it. An author must remain overtly accountable for the way he or she proposes to the public a particular vision of the world and its turmoil, and that is what artists do. Now, in my view, that accountability is the key to authorship. For art, I have often contended, is a potential to see the world, our place in it, and our sociality in a new, as yet unimagined way. In this context, I'll just quote from the most recent statement about this that I saw on a wall text in the Munch Museum in Oslo by guest curator, the world-famous author Karl Ove Knausgård. Art is just as much about searching as it is about creating. But if this is so, searching for what? for ways of entering reality, for entering into the world. And it's up to you to find that way. You meaning not artists, authors, but viewers. Let's then take searching in connection to researching, as in the fashionable term artistic research, and deploy the materiality of language to foreground the re in that word. And if we connect that re of searching to Marcel Proust, à la recherche, du temps perdu, we are faced with the temporality of art. In Knausgård's closing wall text, he brings temporality in a way that is crucial to understand what happens when authors, detaching themselves from their productions, give these over to the public domain and people can see it, as in the exhibition of this festive graduation exhibition here, where beginning authors do just that. And I quote again from Knausgård. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Presence. The presence of a human being. The presence of a landscape, the presence of a room, the presence of a tree, and the presence of a painting that lifts a human being, a landscape, a room, and a tree to the fore. That is what you do as an artist. Still okay with the hearing? Yeah? To see the point of this focus on presence in connection to the author, in exchange with readers, so very different in thrust from the ideology of presence Derrida got so worked up about, so this has nothing to do with that logo-centric. I call on the French philosopher Henri Bergson, his book Matter and Memory from 1896, that was so usefully deployed by Gilles Deleuze in his cinema books. Here you see Bergson and Deleuze together. Now this book, Matter and Memory, from 1896, that's quite a bit ago, starts with a thesis about perception. Bergson claims that perception is not a construction, as we have considered it in the post-realist times, but a selection. The subject makes that selection from among all the perceptible things in the world around her, in view of her own interests. Perception, in Bergson's view, is an act of the body and for the body, as dispositioned in the midst of things to select from. This is then the body of the viewer. This is why texture, color, and dimensions matter as much as figures, space, and perspective. It also brings the viewer into the orbit of what art is, and thus questions the idea of art's autonomy. Perception is an act in the present. But this might entail a naive presentism, a narrowing of time to the brief moment of the now, a temporal selfie, if it wasn't for the participation of memory. Occurring in the present, perception is bound to memory. Without memory, the portion of the visible world we see would not make enough sense to be selected. Since it is the subject's interest in the Habermasian sense of important for the self, that motivates the selection that perception is, a perception image that is not infused with memory images would make no sense. Nor would it have a sensuous impact, since we perceive with as well as for the body. And this is why the body also remembers. At the end of his book, Bergson writes how memory participates in perception. And that participation accounts for the subjective nature of perception, even if the thing we perceive exists outside our consciousness. He writes, in concrete, this is on the slide, in concrete perception, memory intervenes, and the subjectivity of sensible qualities is due precisely to the fact that our consciousness, which begins by being only memory, prolongs a plurality of moments into each other, contracting them into a single intuition. And that is what happens in perception in the present. This also explains why Bergson insisted so strongly on duration, la durée. This is such a Bergsonian obsession. As Deleuze wrote in his book, the Bergsonisme, Bergsonian duration is defined less by succession than by coexistence. So the miracle is that these times come together in this one moment. And this time-space, it is a time-space. It has a spatial aspect. And this time-space is given shape in art. Now, time-space is perhaps best or most typically visible in video installation, but it's not confined to that. There, the simultaneous presence of, and hence the simultaneous movement on multiple screens, embodies the coexistence of duration of different moments. It is a visible instance of Bergson's plurality of moments contracted into a single intuition. Now, this is why the reader is central to the process, set in motion by an author who counts on the interest of readers. Before even beginning to speak, write, or make something, the utterances of an author are already set in this middle voice, the equivalent of the Greek verb form that is neither active nor passive, that is, in between. To appreciate the continued presence of the middle voice, involvement of the viewer in our relationship to space, as well as between author and reader, the concept of psychic space can be helpful. This understanding is needed to grasp how the author cannot function, cannot be without the viewer or reader. Psychic space is based on the real, existential connections between the subject and the space around her. Hence, we must understand the place of the index in the concept of psychic space. The index is a sign that is physically or causally connected to its meaning. Linguistic deixis do you know that term? It's words like this, that, there, tomorrow, yesterday can only be uttered, can only have meaning in relation to the person saying it. Otherwise, they have no meaning. They cannot be described in a dictionary. So this linguistic deixis is a form of indexicality, contiguity. Not only is it primarily linguistic, but not exclusively, it also has a specificity that it is bound to the subject as his or her extension Bergson calls it. Psychic space is material, and the primary thrust of art lies in that materiality. And this is a reference to the most fabulous psychoanalytically oriented critic that I know. The concept of psychic space that has inspired me in this thinking is that of the cultural theorist Kasia Silverman in her book, which I consider really the best study of psychoanalysis and visuality, and a model of responsible criticism and critical scholarship. She offers a theory of the formation of subjectivity and the place of the body in it. She argues, one's apprehension of self is keyed to both to a visual image or constellation of visual images and to certain bodily feelings whose determinant is less physiological than social. And you can see how this makes a single author outside of the text impossible. This statement explains how the relationship between subject as individual and the culturally normative images we interact with on an everyday basis in the social and political domain is bodily without being innate or anatomically determined. Thus, this relationship is both materially solid and subject to change. If the subject can change, and if that change can happen in the social domain, then art can contribute to such change. You see that I'm working towards some sort of political power for art. Artworks perform an insistent interrogation of the indexical relationship between image and viewer on the basis of cultural memories and myths mixed with contemporary realities. They frequently allude to elements of this mixture. They work with the possibility of bodily interaction from within subjectivity with the outside culture, and thus address psychic space as material. But where is the author in this? Now, In order to grasp the consequences of this view of space as image and vice versa in relation to the author-viewer connection, our experience of space is best summed up, as I said, as deictic. And this means that the subject can only see the images in space in relation to her own self, body and mind together. There is no more forceful example of this demonstration, enactment of this fundamental deictic ontology of artworks than the shadow plays by Nalini Malani, on which I've just published a book. There, the viewer-visitor cannot help but become part of the work, watching simultaneously paintings on turning mylar cylinders, mylar is a sort of transparent plastic, and the shadows these cast on the wall, the visitor's own shadows potentially are also visible. This aspect may be what Barthes had in mind when he proclaimed the birth of the reader, and Bergson when he articulated the crucial importance of matter and memory in the act of perception in the present. Bergson's simple idea has transformed contemporary thinking on representation, which for a long time was bound to an opposition between mimesis, seen as imitation, and construction. I'll come back to that in my last part. Thus we unlearn the false security of the colonizing gaze that surveys a field of vision as an experience of looking that ignores the viewer's body. The tradition of linear perspective and its scientific underpinning has naturalized that security. In this respect, perspective is complicit with the naturalization of the colonizing gaze. And I think it is important to keep that in mind when you are confronting the desire or the need to make perspectival works. In such a view of perception, imaging is a movement by definition. It is material, not because of the support, canvas, paper, screens, the associated images, but because the bodily action of mobilizing the image is material. Hence, this is a thesis that I care a lot for, all images, including still ones, move. We can discuss this later. This moving quality is no more limited to figurative images than to any medium. Even radically abstract and still paintings move. This leaves the question of the political effect of images, their potential to move us to action. An effect for which the author remains accountable, but to which the viewer must be open, porous. In order to get there, we must involve one more movement in the Bergsonian view. In 1906, he coined the term creative evolution. Don't mind the term, that we wouldn't use either one today. He used it to describe the type of movement that is both emotional and social, and thereby becomes political. It occurs when understanding and action are imbricated, get conflated. And this fourth Bergsonian movement, which produces readiness to act, not action, but readiness to act, lies at the heart of the political potential of images, provided they work together with the other three movements. No author is sufficient for this. No author is even needed for this. A subject willing to be in the world and to care, to be porous to the deictic ripple effect between the work and the subject, and to be willing to cast his or her own shadow on the world and the space in which it exists. Such a subject makes the work politically meaningful. I just allow myself here one image of my own work to consider that video installation may be the art form that is like a concrete instance of the multiply moving image. Such artworks can create the literal, emblematic embodiment of this potential in a fictional space that with the help of the viewer can become a political, democratic space. Here I just show one installation photograph. I would love to talk more about this work. This is a work about yielding authorship to the viewer in a radical way, but I can't go into that now. The cinematic helps to articulate the movement of images, of course. Painting helps to mobilize it its own dependency on the support, and literature sets language up against itself by means of incongruous word choices and wrong grammar, of which Flaubert, not the sloppiest of writers, as you know, was a master. Just so, considering art in installation in exhibition spaces can help grasp how art in general, including still images, such as paintings, can be eminently operative for political effect through its fundamentally moving quality that takes it out of the hands of the author. This multiply moving quality brings images and other narratives closer together. The graphic storytelling, of which we see such fine examples, I love this. This was the first section I visited and I was very impressed. The graphic storytelling is an emblematic form of that integration of media, but I've seen a lot of other works that did that, which incidentally also delivers us from the frantic attempt, just like authorship, born from the fear of proliferation, to hold on to medium specificity. Now, before moving on to my final section, almost there, I want to discard another specificity, less eagerly pursued or even named, yet even more pervasive, that of gender. In an article in the Littéraire from 1998, Duchamp et Travestie, Ernst van Alphen interprets Duchamp's use of the figuration of Rose Salavi as the author as that travesty that unsettles the unspoken assumptions about gender implied in authorship. This puts Duchamp on a par with Barthes and Foucault. So we have three philosophers here, not just two. But the artist goes further, Duchamp. He's bold. He stages himself as an artist, as a woman. According to Van Alphen, and in line with Amelia Jones, and I will show an image of her and her work, but this is also the occasion to say that all the red in my PowerPoint that was meant to pay homage to your poster has turned Bordeaux. Anyway, according to Van Alphen, in line with Amelia Jones, this is neither a simple pseudonym nor even androgyny. Duchamp does not wish to confuse gender or merge them. His so-called alter ego is a woman as other, denying the paternity of the artwork that tends to be attributed to the artist. Duchamp claimed in 1949, imagine how long ago that is, that he was only the mother of the artworks. However, now this book is called, because you can barely read it, Postmodernism and the Engendering of Marcel Duchamp. It's a beautiful book. Since Jonathan Culler's lucid chapter, Reading as a Woman, in his book on deconstruction, also a text that I keep going back to, paternity and maternity are no longer the simple parental roles as the patriarchal culture has construed them. In spite of the derogatory only in Duchamp's statement, only the mother of the works. Nor is origin, the origin of the works, Heidegger, the point. On the contrary, Duchamp said that a work of art is dependent on the explosion made by the onlooker. It goes to the Louvre because of the onlooker. That's Duchamp. The way the paternal metaphor for the artist is undermined is best understood, writes Van Alphen, through the difference between metaphor and metonymy. Not similarity as a metaphor between artist and work, but contiguity. Not reproduction, but procreation, to stay in that same semantic field. The former insists on maintaining, the latter on differentiating, what Duchamp called exploding meanings. Plural. The result of the explosion is what I have called here, less spectacularly, unbraiding. Now, I would like to enlist the 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza for my cause for a different conception of authorship. This, I propose, is plural and cannot be unified. It consists of features or aspects, not of a definition. I can say the author as, but I'm not saying the author is. It's more imaginative. Spinoza's plea for taking the imagination seriously has enormous consequences, including on political thought, which was one of the directions that his thought went. For it enables the imbrication of intellect and action. It helps us imagine what we see or read on a level that is in continuity with possible innovative action. Think of Bergson. In my recent film, Reasonable Doubt, and inspired by a short and lucid book by Moira Gatens and Genevieve Lord, a book that is really a recommendable book, I have staged Spinoza in discussion with Descartes as a theoretical fiction under the heading, What if? What if they had really met? Which, in historical practical ways, was entirely possible. And so this leads to the first of my pluralized authorships. The author as discussant. Art can help us think and imagine, deploy and braid to recycle once more the metaphor that underlies this lecture, the imagination in the thinking. And in that way, art can enrich our experience of the world. In this sense, artists, like literary authors, speak, but they don't dictate. They offer subtle suggestions that readers and viewers can incorporate in their own lives that the author cannot master. The artist as discussant who thinks and makes others desire to think because thinking is exciting. This is how art is political. Not because it addresses political issues, these days migration, racism, capitalist excesses, corruption, yes, they need constant discussion. I'm not against that discussion, but this is not art's primary task, since that task is always already a double one, to make something and to reflect on the process and result of that making and make people reflect on it. As David Attridge wrote in his 2004 book, The Singularity of Literature, there is no way literature can serve as an instrument without at the same time being challenging the basis of instrumentality itself. And using art to make a propagandistic political point, however important that point is instrumental. Instead of political propaganda, art is uniquely political because it helps us think. Otherwise, braiding together the intellect, the senses, and the imagination. In this sense, the artist is also a politician of a new kind, truly democratic, as opposed to most. As a result, the social world, which is the domain where the political act plays itself out, can be enriched, thickened, and who knows, eventually exceed the culture of tweets and Facebook slogans that is currently the arena of political non-debate on the highest level of power. Rather than as a plea for a particular political cause, important as that cause may be, and in line with Chantal Mouffe's distinction, I see the political as the public sphere where discussion is possible. Oh, sorry, I forgot to... No, I lost a slide. No, here it is. I guess I put it on too quickly. By this move, by political, I mean the dimension of antagonism, which I take to be constitutive of human societies. While by politics, I mean the set of practices and institutions through which an order is created, organizing human coexistence in the context of conflictuality provided by the political. So the political system, the politics, try to sort of order this, master it. But the importance is to keep that discussion, that disagreement. This is the conflictuality that Jacques Rancière calls, with his untranslatable double-meaning word, mésentente. Disagreement and misunderstanding both, a possibility art can protect by keeping renewing complexity and multiplicity. That the complexity and multiplicity that this term, mésentente, harbors. And to realize that you can sometimes not understand because you are not in agreement. So now I see the artist also as an enticement, sense-based and public, according to the conception of the aesthetic of mid-18th century philosopher Alexander Gottlieb Baumgarten, published in 1750 and deeply influential for Immanuel Kant, Baumgarten's Aesthetica constitutes the beginning of modern aesthetic philosophy. The sensuality that inheres in the experience of art does not make the artist a seducer, but an aesthetic agent in Baumgarten's sense, someone who understands and values human nature positively, willing to exchange these insights with others, these sensations with others, as someone who has understood the invariably despised René Descartes better than most. I have made this film on Descartes, so I must bring him in as someone who also believed in the senses. In the same sweep, the author then is a new Cartesian. It would take too long to explain this. Suffice it to say that Descartes has doubted all his life that body and mind could be really separated, as his blame for having put forward. He had simply been ordered by the church to believe that, but he didn't. Walter Benjamin's alternative term, the artist as producer, if taken too simply, is unwittingly complicit with the constantly encroaching capitalist regime. And so is, or risks being, Nicolas Bourriaud's notion of post-production, which can be translated as the artist as post-producer, film editor, for example. And then, yes, I could go for that. I don't want to leave this possibility out, however, for it may entice artists to rethink those words and inflect them differently and not make production in this capitalist, meaningless capitalist sense. But I'm particularly interested in the undeniable fact, resulting from earlier Bart Foucault proposals, that artists, whatever they do, are facing a dilemma. They have their own views and opinions, but they also are bound to respect the freedom of their viewers, so as not to fall into the propaganda mode. The public with which they make their work, publics are multiple, and can thus be compared to an orchestra with many instruments, a polyphonic world that artists are capable of conducting, not to impose an interpretation, but to provide order, so that viewers feel enabled rather than disempowered. For this delicate yet strong task of turning cacophony into polyphony, not into one melody, the artist needs a forceful subtlety, and this is not an oxymoron, an openness to the multiplicity of meaning and yet a passion for enough order to enable viewers to create, reflect, and decide, maybe together. Conducting them as turning chaos into creative order and as time-based. Getting to my last 2 pages, if it's okay. For this, and as the photos of Barbara Henneken show, the artist is also an actor, at least according to Diderot's paradox of the actor. The 18th century philosopher contended that the best acting to be convincing in its emotional representation, so as to have effective impact on the public, requires that the actor does not feel the emotion she expresses. This is paradox indeed. And when I saw my actors in my film work actually shedding tears during their performance of grief, although they would be laughing a minute before and after over coffee, I asked them, I wondered, how was this possible? They actually, the tears fell. Their answer to my query was that they could only enact emotion by means of imagining, Spinoza, what it would mean to feel, as well as to be affected by it, not by actually feeling it. And you see how this can lead to compassion and to train your compassionate possibilities. The imagination, along with the strong desire not to be boss, and to enable but not to enforce affect, turned out to be the key to this kind of artistic activity. Now, a little bit about narcissism. I really care for this, I've mentioned it before. The artist must be a little bit narcissistic. Every human being has to be in order to exist. Part of the delicate balance of the relationship between artist and viewer is the need, practical and emotional, for a certain degree of narcissism, to which I have alluded. A totally unnarcissistic artist will never be able to stand up for herself, dare to show her work, and claim recognition for it. Such failure would also do harm because it would deprive the poor. But too much of it will turn the artwork into self-propaganda instead of self-reflection, disable the artist's engagement with the world, and lead to a damaging search for empty beauty, the kind of artworks we consider over the top. This aspect of the author can also help us make more of the connections between ancient and contemporary art. And this is the one artwork from your show that I want to mention. Elise Bunting's Even has this sort of the fine line between narcissism and creation as separation. Another lecture about that. Here, I just want to suggest briefly that rather than showing a psychic affliction that needs a shrink, Ovid's story, Ovid wrote the story, invented it, put forward a contemporary resistance against and fatigue with the perennial standard of realism. Now, I'll briefly make that case. A narcissistic person overindulges in self-love and self-interest, we say. Narcissus, as the myth has it, died because he did not recognize himself when he looked at a mirror image of himself in the shiny surface of a pool, fell in love with the image, and drowned when he tried to touch it. And we only think, oh, he fell in love with his own image. That's not the point. Nor did he perceive the mirror for what it was, a boundary between reality and fiction. That's why he died. And that's the point. The erotic effect of the image worked on him, but not the formative one. Now, in Ovid's Metamorphoses, when his mother consulted the seer Tiresias and asked whether her son would live to an old age, the answer was, if he does not know himself. Condition. Self-knowledge, which supposedly entails wisdom, if it is spiritual, kills when it is carnal, erotic, or so it seems. Yes, and there is a totally different part of the story. Later on, the opposite seems to be the case. Ovid presents the denial of carnal knowledge as Narcissus' failure that is fatal. He falls in love with an image without body. That's the problem. Imputing bodily existence to what is only a visual image, or as the case may be, water, he condemns himself. This is the story of death in the image. It's about the denial of the body. Prefiguring his imminent demise, Ovid's Narcissus annexes the soon-to-occur rigor mortis. He remains immobile, his face impassive, like a statue sculpted in marble of Paris. Ut signum, like a sign, an iconic sign of a sign, as an enactment of radical constructivism. A character as a construction, not a person. As opposed to common understandings, Narcissus is not wrong in admiring himself. He admires everything that makes him admirable, says the text. His tragedy is not brought about by excessive self-love, so much as by naive realism. What you are seeking does not exist. That is the point. He doesn't recognize that he loves himself, and destroyed by the sense of tragic hopelessness that he has inflicted so often upon others, he was sort of a cruel type, he begins his descent into death, rather than blaming him or the narcissism named after this mythical figure for moral shortcomings or formative failure. I propose to take Ovid's Narcissus as an allegory of the author or artist, as well as the reader or viewer, who conflates character or figure and person. So this whole issue of narcissism is the issue of realism that the artist has to contend with. Now, there are many more artist identities or activities derived from how they see and enact their tasks that I can come up with, and I'll have to come to a conclusion. The artist as witness who notices what we do not want to see, so that we do not notice it. This is the artist who seeks to make the invisible visible, and who needs the help of her viewers to honor that new visibility by seeing it and pointing it out. This is what Knausgård meant with this lifting up of elements. This was the general assessment of Nalini Malani's work in Documenta 13 in 2012, called In Search of Vanished Blood. And I hope you get to see her exhibition in the Centre Pompidou in Paris from mid-October this year to January 2018. Beautiful exhibition. The work on the right here in the slide is part of a new series of paintings on tondos that she made especially for this exhibition. For me, Malani is a key artist in the debate about what can make art political without ceasing to be artistic, and what the artist as witness can do for this. Then there is, of course, the artist as translator, in the sense Walter Benjamin gave to that notion. In the task of the translator, in his Baudelaire material, in line with his more straightforwardly philosophical musings on language, Benjamin takes an explicit position against the idea of translation as derivative and as adequate. It proposes a philosophy of language in which translation serves not the original, but the liberation and the release of its potential, which he calls translatability, and which is located in that which resists translation. The pure language, as he unfortunately calls it, that translation is called upon to release in the original, is far from the core of truth of hermeneutic traditions, located nowhere more precisely and more definitively than in the folds that envelop it. In a very Baroque image, I love that because I'm interested in Baroque. He writes, while content and language form a certain unity in the original, like a fruit and its skin, the language of the translation envelops its content like a royal robe with ample folds. Or we could say as the skin of an overripe apple. The importance of this view of translation for our purposes today is that it fits perfectly the notion of releasing the potential, which is the task indeed of the viewer. Artwork is given to the public and the viewer has to release its potential. The translation-sensitive artist will make work that asks, that implores the viewer to see its occasion or object in an expanded vision, releasing its potential to become, as the Deleuze would say, the artwork. Now, I don't have time to, I'm sort of at my last minutes, I don't have time to develop the other aspects of authorship, such as the artist as clue seeker, foregrounding and lifting up, as Knausgård had it, or the artist as gardener, who seeks to follow the natural flows of things and maintain it, or the artist as migrant, which is how Colombian sculptor Doris Salcedo sees her own status, her own task as an artist. But these identities of what artists are, derived from what they do and achieve performatively, all converge on the notion that the artist is nothing without the viewer, but that she can only reach that viewer if he or she chooses any of these and the numerous other possible roles available for the artist, plus those not yet invented. So keep thinking about what else you can be as an artist. Those who don't make that step, go that mile, will suffer and blame critics, viewers and others, everyone but himself. This is Munch's attempt to complain about his public. Those who do will find a compassionate posture more rewarding than both a stimulans, a stimulating aspect for their art, and as an easier motivation to accept the limits of success. Success is always limited. And for the fundamentally insecure, it is never enough. I've heard big celebrities complain that they weren't famous enough. Now, I would think that making is the most humble, modest, yet precise term for what artists do. They make. But they make something that did not yet exist. That's what makes the art unique. But you don't ever do that alone. Hence the addition co in my title. Thank you for your attention.
Well, Mieke, thank you very, very much for your lecture. As I understood, also worked upon for this occasion and thoughts for us. So this is really something very precious that you have offered us today. I think we could work on it for the next academic year in terms of its complexity and density and trying to unpack all the different chapters. It was really a theoretical lecture on the artist and its multiple functions, and I think in that sense really something we can sort of continue to discuss here, and I hope we will be able to continue that conversation. We have some time for questions. I had one which kind of weaves into the second one that I have. I mean, many interconnected ones following the lecture. But I wanted to ask you maybe a very basic first question, which is this: you said at some point, you observed actually, you made the observation how the figure of the author in its kind of social status declined as the rise of the artist. This was also through the correspondence you had with this colleague who was also working on authorship. And the idea that, the figure of the artist has become much more popular and much more, let's just say, hype. And I kind of have never really figured out that difference between the artist and the author beyond just understanding it in relation to the receiver, either the reader or the viewer. And so just literally in terms of a certain kind of relation that is established with someone else. But still, I don't know if you could say a bit more of these sort of sliding doors between these two terms. Somehow it feels maybe, to pick up on what you said, more comfortable for an artist to claim authorship than for an author to claim artistry. And that says something perhaps of the difference between the two. And the other only thing I'd like to maybe pick up on and ask you to elaborate more on is this question, the big point that you made on the all images being moving, because that also kind of brings us, are we talking about visual images or all forms of images, verbal images, sound images, and so, yeah, how we break down also the visuality of the image maybe through that definition.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. There was a lot in this lecture that is too brief, and I hope that you got enough out of it, but I know it could be a book. This is a bit my problem in life. The first question about artist and author distinction, I consider that the author that Barthes and Foucault were taking on was really the literary author, which is the artistic author. He's not talking about other kinds of text, so it's not any piece of journalism that poses this issue. They really talk about an artist claiming a piece of writing as an artwork, and therefore the critic being so insecure and having this Taalangst, this fear of language, that they are going to ask the author, what did you mean with this metaphor, with this change of grammar or this issue? What did you mean? Well, it's up to you. The right author will answer, it's up to you. I once was asked to write an article about a Belgian artist who then the director of the institute said, would you like to, I can make you meet her. And I said, well, that's lovely, but thank you, I would like to meet her after I write. And that the artist said to that, this is the author I want. Because she got the importance of that, of not being asked, what did you mean, but to wait what comes to you. and then work with that. And this is the delightful connection that I then get with artists I write about afterwards. And sometimes, I mean, when they're alive, I send them the piece before it goes to print. Sometimes I have seen the slide in the wrong colors, all this red suddenly turning Bordeaux, and I've had that with the same artist. When I said it was purple, and she said, no, it's blue. That's fine. But what she meant is not at stake. And if they do, and I once with another artist, this was a really interesting case where the artist said, you were wrong here. I also submitted the piece before it goes to press. This was a big deal because it was a sculpture that I considered to evoke rape. She said, no rape, not at all, this is totally wrong. And part of it was that the slide I had had sort of strange colors that I considered red. And she said, it's not red, I never use red in my work for this reason. Fair enough, right? What do I do when an artist refuses my interpretation? Well, I wrote about this misunderstanding, mésentente, in the book. I explained it. I said, this is a moment where artist and viewer have a disagreement, and that is productive. And she was completely fine with that. So this is a really important issue. But authors have the same. There are authors who are completely upset by their critics. And there are authors who say, oh, that's wonderful. I recognize that's what I'm saying, but I didn't realize I was saying it. That's, of course, the ideal response for a critic. Then you say, wow, I did it, right? But there is no, I would say there is no fundamental difference between an author and an artist. Except, of course, that the word author invokes authority, while the word artist invokes art, and that's a different association. But I think that the artist as celebrity, that I showed in this one slide of, Jeff Koons and what's his name, Damien Hirst, they have success and they make a lot of money, and you have opinions about them. I'm not going to go into that. That's all fine. I don't have to like their art, and I don't tell them. But I'm not blaming them for going for the capitalist system, because we live in that system, and they have to put their own limits to it, but capitalism is capitalism, we cannot avoid it. Okay, the second question, right? The art moves, all art moves. I do that through Bergson, who says, first you select, and that selection is in the present, but you fill it with memories, so there's already movement. You see an artwork and you bring in things that weren't there. That's a movement. Not to speak of the just practical material movement when you walk through an exhibition or you flip through a book. That's also movement. You're always in movement. If the image doesn't move, you move. And it's actually very interesting that in Malani's show in Paris, there's going to be this new work which is going to be displayed in a way in which it is, you get a bench, you can sit, because you have to take the time with it, but you cannot help looking at the others, and so you move. But then the fundamental movement becomes the one that moves you, and here comes in the other sense of movement, emotional movement, affective movement, moves you to action. And that is, of course, the really important one. Moves you to be ready to act. The art isn't meant to put you on the street with banners. So I don't believe so much in activist art, but I rather talk about activating art. I think politically relevant art is activating rather than activist. This is now my new slogan. Is that enough?
Yes, definitely. I'll open it up to the audience. Oh, there we go. If there are some comments, questions, thoughts, feelings,
Objections?
Objections.
It's fine.
Yes?
Hello. You said during your lecture that the artist shouldn't become a self-propagandist due to too much narcissism, because that would impede on his real function, which I guess is being a propagandist for something else. But then what is he a propagandist for? And especially if he's already part of capitalism and cannot escape it, does that imply he's actually a pro-bourgeois capitalist? Well, I would say collaborator of the system.
Well, some artists, and I did a sort of caricatural choice of these two guys. Some artists you could easily criticize for really going the whole mile with capitalism. And there are other artists who are much more reluctant to do that. I think it's difficult to generalize on that. I just don't like it when people say, oh yeah, that's a successful artist. I think there is some jealousy in that. Artists are allowed for me to be successful, but that's not the goal. And the propaganda for a political cause in particular, I find, how I try to explain it is, art is not called to, art somehow has a multiplicity, an ambiguity. If art is just saying we should behave better with the refugees, I completely agree, but I don't need art to tell me that. What I need art to tell me is show somehow the complexity and the difficulty and allow me to form my opinion. Propaganda, Adorno already said this, propaganda takes the art out of the art. And art for art that only wants to be art, takes the political out of art, which is also bad. How can you keep those two together without turning the art into propaganda? For whatever cause. And don't forget, propaganda is not only for good causes, but also for bad causes, in what I consider bad causes. And the propaganda that you see a lot implicitly for capitalism, for example, by suggesting it's the only system, that globalization is the only possibility, and all those artworks, I have a problem with that side of the propaganda. But my basic problem is not that. I'm not quarreling with political opinions of artworks, embedded in artworks. I'm quarreling with the idea that art is an instrument for something outside. And that's why I quoted Derek Attridge, who said, art will always already problematize, challenge the notion of instrumentality, even if it is instrumental. And it always is to some extent. But if you keep that simple, then you're doing something else. I try not to be essentialist about what art is, because I find that completely incomprehensible to try to, I don't want to go in the direction of defining what art is, but what I see in art that I find good art is complexity. And that goes against the idea of propaganda. So whatever the propaganda is for, it doesn't even matter.
Okay. No? All right. Well then, thank you very much, Mieke. I guess we have a quiet audience today. No one else? Okay, then a hand of applause for you. Thank you.